Okay, so today's topic is a magical cup. And I want to frame this in the language of Kabbalah, because that Kabbalah does speak about cups, but it's more about these terms that I'm about to share with you, Hebrew terms, mashpia and mekabel. So these are important. If you want to write them down, you can. If you want to etch them on your brain, sure. But the words are mashpia, mekabel. Yeah. In English, I would spell it M-A-S-H, like the TV show. Mash, but mash, and then pia, P-I-A, like the car, but totally different. So mashpia, and the mekabel is M-E-K-A-B-E-L. In Hebrew, memshin pei yud ayin mashpia. Yes. Mekabel is a recipient. Mashpia is the giver. Okay, so here we go. So let's break it down. Mashpia refers to the giver. Mekabel refers to the recipient. Now, in every relationship, in any relationship, and in most interactions, there's usually a role of mashpia and a role of mekabel. So, for example, very simple example, in a classroom, the teacher would be the mashpia, and the students would be the mekablim, I guess plural, right? They would be the recipients. So, you imagine you walk into a fourth grade Chumash class where they're studying, fourth grade, I don't know, Chaisara, Toldot, whatever, one of the Torah portions in the book of Genesis. So you have the teacher, right? Vayomer Hashem, and Hashem said El Avram to Avram. They teach with a little bit of a tune. So the teacher is the mashpia. The teacher is the communicator, the giver. How would you translate mashpia? Influencer. I love it. That's great. The influencer. Good. I like that. Shefa, which is the shoresh, which is the root word. Shefa also kind of means flow. Plenty. Right. But shefa, right. Abundance. Right. So it's about a flow, giving, abundance, bestowing, beneficence, influencing. That's on the giver side. That's the mashpia. Mashpia is the one who is giving. Then you have, on the other side, you have the students, the ones that are learning, or more precisely in the language that we're discussing today, you have those that are receiving, right? You have the mekabel or the mekablim. You have the ones who are, or the one who is receiving. And in both instances, there is something active going on, right? When you're giving, when you're sharing, when you're influencing, certainly it's an active process. But when you're receiving, it's also an active process. It's not just an empty vessel that's just sitting there. There is an active process. Now, we might call this in modern language active listening, or you can call it you can frame it any which way you want. Either way, the act of receiving is not simply the way we understand the relationships, not simply passive, but it is somewhat active. And yet at the same time, we would say that the one doing the most heavy lifting is probably the one who is giving, the one who is doing the bestowing, not the one who is being given to, or the one who's doing the receiving. So in any interaction, let's say you have just the conversation, two people talking, and I picture the Charlie Brown voice of the teacher. Wow. Wow, right? That whole thing, right? So you have one person going, wow, the person going, wow, and they go back and forth. It's like a tennis match.
That's also the other teacher.
Right. Yeah, wow, right? Or parents. And then, right, so you're looking. So hold on, why are we looking? Because there's two people talking, right? And you're standing by and observing. And so each party is taking turns. And thus, we might say that the role of mashpia and mekabel, the role of giver or influencer and influencee, or giver and taker, or giver, stower and recipient, that role is being switched up back and forth. So one person's doing the talking, the other person's doing the listening. And then they switch roles. It's kind of like WWE back in the day, or as I remember, WWF. It's like, tag in, come down, and pile driver from the third rope. Sorry, back to the story. So what's going on here? So what's Jake the Snake? So what's happening here is that I really want to break out some Randy Macho Man Savage, but I'm not going to. So what we have here is the fact that when you have two people, so sometimes there are fixed roles of mashpia and mekabel. Sometimes it's fixed. In other words, like that person will always be the mashpia, that person will always be the mekabel in that relationship. And sometimes you have the situation where the roles kind of flip-flop back and forth. And I would say most of the time things flip back and forth, but again, you sometimes have fixed roles. But one of the interesting, I don't know if it's an innovation, but one of the interesting things that Kabbalah and Hasidic philosophy emphasizes is that there's something magical about the role of the mekabel, of the recipient. And it's not just passively receiving. There's an active, activity to receive, but above and beyond the fact that there's an active, there's an active role in receiving. Above and beyond that, there is something magical that happens when something is received. And so, in the language of Kabbalah, we would say the following: that I'll say the conscious what it's not. And I think I wrote it up in the email. So imagine you have, and I do have this. Let me just do this actually for the demo. We're doing it for the gram. Okay, doing it for the demo. So let's check this out. There you go. Like and subscribe. Okay. Cup. This cup has some sort of orange tea situation. And I take this cup and I pour it, the contents, and I pour it into the other cup as such. And now it's going to be really cold. But now it's in the other cup, right? So it was here, and then I poured it into there. And this cup received, this cup was so this would be the mashpia. This was giving, and this is receiving. Now, it happens to be also that the giver in this case is a cup, but I guess you could say the same thing is true with human beings. The teacher was once a student. So the fact that the teacher has this information, it means that he or she had once received it as a cup. And now at this point, they are pouring it. They are, hey, good morning. They are kind of bestowing it, right? They are gifting it. They are transferring it to a new recipient, who in this case we'll just call, the mekabel, the recipient. And we might liken the recipient to a kos, to a cup, which is exactly what our text will do today, and we'll see that inside. So you have the giver, the receiver is a cup. And by the way, to be a recipient, it takes a little work. Not only do you have to be active as an active recipient, but you have to have a space to receive. If you don't have space, then you're not going to receive anything. Imagine. Okay, so now this cup, and it's not full, but it's up to here, right? It's up to the, kind of that line right there. So imagine if I try to pour another cup full inside, what's going to happen? Yeah, right. It's not rocket science. It's a mess, right? It's going to spill over the sides, and that's going to produce a problem. Why? Because when it comes to vessels and recipients and cups, etc., the mekabel, the recipient, has to be open, has to be available. If you're not open and available, the hashpah, the influence, is not going to go inside. It's just not going to land. It's not going to rest. It's not going to settle because there's no space. You need space to receive. So the first criteria of a vessel, the first criteria of a mekabel, the first criteria of a kos, of a cup, is space. If you don't have space, you can't receive. If a student comes into class and says, I know everything, then how are you going to teach? What's the plan? Right? I'm not even talking about if the child's tired or whatever it is, but maybe that's also part of the same phenomenon. Bottom line is, if the person is unreceptive, I mean, literally, as the word suggests, unreceptive means you can't receive. Now, you can try to drill and create an opening, I mean, look, the Talmud says that before Rabbah began teaching, Rabbah was one of the great scholars one of the great Talmudic scholars. He was the teacher of Rava and Abaye, one of the great teachers. And it says that Rabbah, before he began teaching, he would say, Milsa de bedichuta, and then he would begin, and then patach b'shmaita. So at first he said a joke, and then he began teaching. Why did he say a joke? Right?
Laughter releases, maybe.
Oh, opens you up. Because you might come in, people might come in, the students might come in, and he was teaching older students, obviously, not like little kids. I shouldn't say obviously, he was teaching older students. Sometimes you walk in and you got stuff in your mind and whatever, and you're like, okay, he's giving a shir, he's giving a lecture about something, but you might not be so receptive. But if you're able to engage someone, right, tell a joke, they become open. Oh, now you're dealing with an open crowd. I should probably employ some of that into my teaching. Who would have thought? So part of it is the mashpia, giver, helping open up the mekabel, helping open up the recipient. But either way, whether it's coming with a little bit of assistance from the giver, or whether it's coming solely from the recipient, the bottom line is to receive, you got to be open. If you're not open, you're not receiving. So that's point number, yeah?
As a tiny aside, we had a very difficult mediation with an employee in California. I was probably never employed anyone in California again. I was our only employee in California. However, there was the mediator. Every time he came into the virtual room with us, he'd make a joke. So over the course of the 5-6 hours of mediation, he'd probably be with us 15 times. At each time, he made a joke. And it was very interesting how that joke at the start of the interaction with us enabled us, I think, over the course of the mediation and obviously the other side, to be much more open to
get it. Yeah,
I think so.
I'm gonna do some quick hugs. I love that. I love that. All right, hold on, bring it in. First of all, Mazel.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Morning, it's Moses Day. Good to bring you again.
Good to see you. Wow. All right, we got the whole crew here. We got the whole crew. Guys, grab some bagels. There's a great breakfast. Bagels, lox, cream cheese, orange juice, oranges. You can press your own oranges. Wow. Ariel, now that you're graduated from UGA, what's Disney? Like, what's the, like they used to say to the quarterbacks in the Super Bowl, like, where do you go next?
Living in New York.
Epic. Oh, that's right. I heard about that.
But Isaiah first.
Isn't he the guy with the pizza?
Yeah.
The one by Pizza Reviews? Tell him to go to more kosher pizza joints. Tell him to do a formaggio. Yeah, Dave Portnoy. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does. He's done some kosher places. Good to see you. He's done some kosher. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Wonderful.
This is amazing. All right, we got the mishpach here. Jason, grab some eats. Yeah, for sure. All right, so back to Mashpia Macabre. So you have, and thank you for sharing that, because sometimes you got to break the ice. You know, we use that term break the ice, but what does it mean to break the ice? It's true in any relationship also, just in general, human beings, human emotions, human just interactions. If a person is closed, right? If a person's heart is closed, if a person's, mind is closed, if a person's anything is closed, then you're going to hit a brick wall. You're not going to be able to have an emotional conversation. You're not going to be able to have a real conversation. You're not going to be able to have the transference of information or the person to receive. Imagine you're trying to train someone at a job, and they come up and they basically say, they're kind of like, their perspective is they know how to do it already because they've done the job before in a different company. They know how to do it. And you're trying to impress upon them, one second, but we do it a little bit differently here, right? We have different processes here, right? Imagine in school, right? Imagine you're, you're in a leadership, right? You're in a leadership position in school. Imagine you're training someone that comes in or whatever it is. And they're like, oh yeah, I've worked in school before. I know exactly how to do this. And you're like, well, hold on. I know that you know how you've done it, but I want you to know how we do it here. And that's a little bit different. And they're like, no, I know how to do it. And you're like, oh, red flags. You got to be listening. You got to be open, right? I know you know. And that's why we're talking, because we appreciate your accomplishments, but you got to be open to understanding how we operate, because we have maybe a slightly different set of values or processes. And therefore, it's important for you to know that. In other words, this cannot be overstated. I think that's the right way to say it. It cannot be overstated, meaning it needs to be stated again and again. To be a makabel, to be a recipient, you have to be open. You have to be open. The moment you think that you know it, that you got it, you're closed off, you're not going to receive anything. A full cup cannot contain. A full cup is the emptiest cup of all. That's the paradox. Well, what's the second one? No, Mukubal. Same thing. A Kabbalist is one who receives wisdom. Kabbalah means received.
Right.
Same thing. It all comes from the word about receiving. It's about being open to something a little bit beyond ourselves. That's the whole effort of Kabbalah. But the idea here is that typically we think of the recipient, and again, I'm using these cups as an example, as if you're the cup, if you're the empty cup, then you are very passive, empty vessel. So you had to create space and maybe kind of boring out that hole of the cup. You think of, like, you start off with, if you make a pottery cup or bowl, which I've never done, but it's always seemed like a cool thing to try. But if you make it, right, you start off with a lump of clay that's solid, and then eventually you shape it I don't know, you got a wheel, yeah, some paddles, a wheel situation. Have you guys ever done this? Wheel, yeah. You kind of, I guess, you make a and then it like, I feel like there's a YouTube video or 2 or 1,000 on this, right? And you make a space. So making space is an active process. But again, I'm just going to keep on doing this again until this thing is ice cold. When in this context, we would say that the cup is not actually adding anything to the contents, right? In other words, it only has inside it what was poured inside of it. So we might say the same thing with education. When you teach someone, right, you share with them, let's say, a mathematical formula. All they have is what you gave them. Because if they're the cup, if they're the recipient, and you poured content, A into cup B has content A, and that's all they have. But what we find, and what's incredible is that so often, when you just seemingly just pour something into the other, somehow, by the time you're done, the contents in the recipient have changed. And not for the worse, but for the better. Give an example. You take a seed. Take a seed, little, I don't know, little seed. Put it into the ground. The ground would be the recipient. You put it into the ground. What happens? Hold on, I had the seed in a packet for a year and nothing happened, right? Nothing happened. I put it somewhere else, right? I let it be for a little bit. The next thing you know, boom, something grows. And the question is, well, hold on, what happened? And so suddenly we realize that there are some cups, some not literally cups, but some recipients, some mekablim, some recipients that aren't just passive, but are active, right? Of course, this is an analogy to the human biology as well, right? Where it's Mother's Day. So the idea here is that, right, mothers produce life in much the same way. There's the contribution of the male, and then the reception of the female, and that creates and generates life. And it's an amazing thing, because you would think, well, one second, I'm just putting the seed into the ground, so I should just have a seed in the ground. No, now there's something else. Now there's something brand new. And the question is, how does that happen? But the truth is, it also happens in education. It also happens in other forms of influence. What does that mean? You share an idea with someone, and the next thing you know, they're running with it and developing it and creating something special. There's something magical that can happen when the other party or when a party is receptive. There's something magical that can happen in the process of receptivity. The truth is, even before it hits the other person, there's something incredible that can happen within oneself, because not only does the cup work from, let's say in education, from teacher to student, but even within the teacher themselves, there's the same process before it hits the student. What do I mean? There's the way the idea is in your head, and then the way the idea moves from your mind to your mouth, to your words. So let's just use some Kabbalistic terminology. You have seichel. Seichel means intelligence. Then you have midas. Midas are emotions. So it's how you think and how you feel, right? Seichel is how you think. Midas is how you feel. And by the way, everybody is wired differently. Some people think a certain way, which means the following. Two people can observe the same phenomenon or can be part of the same, experience and have a different perspective on the experience. How is that possible? You saw the same facts are happening. How can you see it from two different perspectives? You know what the answer is? Because people don't have the same seichel. In fact, as the Talmud, not even Kabbalah, as the Talmud states, just like two faces aren't the same, two minds aren't the same either. Just like no two faces are the same, twins maybe, aside, but like no two minds are alike either. People see the world differently. Again, just in the context of teaching, just sticking on the theme of education, when it comes to teaching, you can present the same class, the same lesson, and then ask the students when they got out, so what'd you hear? What'd you get? It could be totally different. And that's not only true, maybe, 1 + 1 is 2, everyone's got the same answer. Hopefully, if they were listening. But like when it comes to Torah, study or whatever it is, or lessons, you have Torah, whatever it is, you say, so what did you hear? You hear the rabbi's sermon. So what'd you take away from it? Totally different things. Oh, I love the joke. Or, that story that he told us, or whatever. But I don't even mean what you remember, but even just how you understand it and how you frame it is different, because people are fundamentally different. So now let's talk about the internal way that this works. So there's seichel amidus, there's or seichel amidot, there's how you think and how you feel, and everybody's wired differently. Everyone thinks differently. And then there's what we call machshava, dibur, and ma'aseh, which means thought, speech, and action. So you have an idea, and then you process the idea in your mind. And let me explain the difference. There's the idea the way you know it, and then there's the idea the way you're thinking about it currently. Those are two different things. It's almost like on a computer, there's the way the file is stored, and then there's the way that the way that you open the file and are actually actively reading it. So in your mind, so for example, that the capital of, the capital of New York State is Albany. Good, you knew that. But guess what? That file, unless we are on the same wavelength in a super creepy way, you probably were not actively thinking about that before I asked the question, correct? Meaning you had that information filed, stored away. You had that stored away somewhere in a folder in your brain, which means that you could recall it. You could open it up. You got that, you got a fast, you got some hotkeys on in your brain. You can access it, pull it up, and you got the answer. But you weren't actively thinking about it until you're actively thinking about it. There's a difference between seichel and midas. Seichel and machshava. Seichel is what you know. Machshava and how you know what you know. Machshava means what you're thinking about currently. Those are two different things. So you have all the files and how you know the files, and all that is part of your seichel, your intelligence. But machshava means what you're actively thinking about and processing in the moment. And then you can take that and put it into words. You can start formulating words. So before you start speaking or as you're speaking, you have to take your thoughts that you're thinking about and speak. If you're not thinking, you can't speak. Well, I mean, it happens sometimes, but it kind of looks a little complicated. If someone's trying to speak without thinking, you can usually tell. But typically when you're speaking, you're channeling what you're thinking. So you're thinking and you're channeling, yes.
Seichel be how you use what you know.
Saying application.
How you use it.
Yeah, you could also say that. It depends on how you want to I hear what you're saying. Depends on how you want to frame seichel. But I think in a more technical term, seichel is intelligence. It's the ability to know. It's how you know. It's what you know, etc. As opposed to really machshava or machshava, which is what you're thinking about currently in the moment. And that means what you're actively processing, what you're actively aware of, your conscious thoughts in the moment. And that's different than what you know or how you know. That's all kind of like behind the scenes. Machshava is almost like what's in front of your mind, what's like at the forefront of your thoughts in the present. And then but I hear what you're saying. Seichel, sometimes we say like, oh, that person has a lot of seichel. But I think that's also when they act, it's indicative of what's going on inside their mind. But either way, but what happens when a person communicates? So now they're moving it from thought to speech. So you tell a person, you know what? I had this amazing idea. I was just thinking that we should go, today to the food truck at Ariel in Dunwoody. It'd be so much fun. Do like a post-Kabbalah food truck. Don't worry, it's not open until 1. I'm not actually, but imagine you have an idea, and then as you're talking, you say, well, you know what? This is going to be amazing. I've got a great idea. Not only can we go to the food truck, but then we can go to the flag football games and watch the Sollish kids in the playoffs. Like, oh my gosh, this is going to be amazing. Today at the JCC, which is like 2 minutes away from Congregation Ariel. This is going to be amazing, right? It's going to be so cool. And then, oh my gosh, and then for the nightcap, we can watch a doubleheader as the other kid. So here's what happens. What happens is and this happens so often, when we begin talking, we suddenly get new ideas or new thoughts, which is a little weird. Because if you looked at the relationship between thought and speech as cup and cup, well, not literally cup, right? Yiddish means head. But if you look at it like that, where you have your thoughts, and then you just pour them into your speech, and then your speech pours them to someone else, right? You see what's going on here? Yeah, almost like a cascading waterfall around my electronics. I gotta be a little careful here. So you have your mind that kind of pours into your words, and then your words pour into someone else's head. That's what you think it's had. It's a cascading. Great. And you would say it's the same liquid that's going from one to the other. It's not changing. How would it be altered? And yet, we know even before it hits the recipient internally, when you speak something out, you can get greater clarity. Have you ever had the experience where you knew something in your mind and you were thinking about it, and then you shared it with somebody, and as you're sharing it, as you're talking it through, you say to yourself, 1 second. Oh my gosh, this just crystallized. And you tell the person, hold on 1 second. I just had an idea. And the question is, well, 1 second, why do you have more ideas when you're speaking? And some people find that the greatest clarity comes only through speaking.
Yes, I'm one of them.
I would say many people, yourself included, right, find that the greatest clarity comes through talking it out. In fact, the Talmud says, Daiga belev, Yashchena, there's a verse in Proverbs, Daga.
The Aga.
Daga.
The Aga.
The language I'm speaking is Ashkenazi Hasidic Jew. It's its own dialect. That is a problem. That's a worry. It's a Daiga. Daiga belev, Shchena. Daiga, see? All right, Ellen, Daiga. Good. Ellen's backing me up here. I'm not alone on the totem pole. Daiga belev, if you have a worry in the heart, Yashchena. The literal meaning is just get rid of it. Just don't worry about it. Oh, great. So all my anxiety will be cured by just not worrying about it. So if you're worried about something, here's the advice. Don't worry about it. You'll be good. How's that going to work? So the Talmud says it's not what it means. Yashchena means sichena. Sicha. What does that mean? To speak it out to someone else. Yisichena la'acherim. Speak it out to someone else. If you have worry in your heart, the best advice is converse about it with someone else. And there are many reasons why that's helpful. Number one, they might offer a solution. Number two, just knowing that someone is willing to listen and to care, that itself lifts the burden. You're not alone. But the third reason is the one that I want to circle back to, which I think is really important. And that is because so often when you begin discussing a problem with someone, you yourself realize that there's a solution that you had overlooked in your own head. So often when you speak about a problem, it's like, I got this problem, like there's no way out. And you speak it over, you're like, oh, I actually have the solution. Thank you very much. I'll go now. It's like, thank you for listening, but I've actually solved it myself. And the question is, well, why couldn't you do that in your own head? And sometimes you might say, well, sometimes I can't do that in my own head. But you know what? There's something about the power of speech. And here's what Kabbalah says about all, sorry?
How you say it? I always heard Daige.
Right. See, it's Yiddish. It's more of a Yiddish pronunciation. But here's the point. The way Kabbalah explains it is because recipients are not just cups, or maybe let's put it a different way. Cups are not just cups. Cups are not just empty vessels that only receive what's poured into it and don't introduce anything to the table. Everything, I can't say everything, but very often the Mikabel, the recipient, or the energy of receptivity brings to it something else that is a dynamic component in the relationship. So like the earth, let's just use the earth example. When you put the seed into the earth, it's not a passive recipient. It's an active and dynamic force. It takes the seed and what does it do? Like germinates? Is that even a right word? Am I using correct terminology? It germinates the seed. I'll stick with the way Kabbalah explains it, whether or not it's botanically correct. So it says that the seed first disintegrates, kind of opens up in the earth, kind of like loses its very, stone. Huh? Yeah. Yeah. It's like shell. It's like very hard. It opens up. And when it opens up, then the earth can kind of like get it going and I guess fertilize or whatever, germinate. And then it begins flowering. The first step though is kind of losing yourself. If you take a seed and you paint it with kind of acrylic nail, that stuff, that nail stuff, I use it all the time. I'm kidding. But that stuff that goes over a nail polish to kind of keep it locked in. Is that called acrylic? Am I using the right terminology? Top coat. There you go. Love it.
Lacquer.
Imagine you do that. You paint the seed and drop it into the ground. Guess what's not going to happen with that seed? It's not going to grow because it's stuck. It's stuck. For a seed to become a radically new entity, which is like a tree or a plant or a flower or something like epic, it's got to kind of lose itself. And that power happens as part of the magic that happens in the recipient. Recipients so often are not static, they're dynamic. I mean, think about when we, influence our kids or influence someone else or speak to, a group of whatever it is. and like the inspiration that people can give is just amazing. It reminds me of what one of the great Talmudic rabbis once said. He said, I learned a lot from my teachers. I learned even more from my colleagues. Talmidai yoter mikulam. And from my students, I learned from my students more than anyone else. There's something about the process of giving and the other party receiving that actually enhances what you give. There's something about it. There's something about giving and the recipient receiving that enhances the giving or the gift itself. And that is so pronounced when we give to others, but it's even pronounced, just circling back, when we have that internal process of moving from thought to speech. Speech could be construed as just a very passive pass-through, right? You have the idea or you have the thought in your head, you put it into words, and then you deliver it. It's kind of like, I don't know, let's use another example. You have a bowl, right, that you want to gift to someone. Why are you gifting a bowl? Because people do that. It's like a thing. Like you have a bowl, and now it's right, a bowl, and you gift it. So you take the bowl, you put it into a box, you put it into a thing, you put a wrapping over it, and then you give it to someone else. And then they open it up, and it's a pony. Of course, it's not a pony because the packaging didn't change what it is. But in speech, it does. You guys following me? Yeah.
What do you mean?
That's why I asked. What I'm saying is usually when you take something and you put it into a package, right, and then you take it out of the package, it's the same thing. It doesn't change. You put the bowl in, you take the bowl out. But when it comes to words, you take an idea, you put it into your words. By the time it's unpacked from your words, it could be a new thing, be a new concept, much deeper, much richer. Suddenly you have analogies and parables and applications. Suddenly you have all of these new ideas, and all you did was you took your thoughts, you put into words, and mitamal, and suddenly it's something transformed. It's magical. You took this, you put it to the ground. The next thing you know, you got an apple tree.
But
What?
that's how Hashem created everything, through
Right.
speech.
And the key here is, but here we're using speech as one example. Although you're right. But I think the key here is, the way Kabbalah frames it is, the power of the cup, the power of the recipient. Because not all cups are cups. Some cups are magical cups. That's the title of today's class, a magical cup. Some cups can enhance the contents, right? Warning, contents may be enhanced. These contents are not hot anymore, as I've emphasized, right? So the contents can be magnified and amplified and enhanced through the process of framing it and through the process of containing it. So again, you think that if you contain something, well, it's not going to change. You just put it into a container. It just went in something else. It can be radically transformed. So this is the secret of the way Kabbalah explains the relationship between mashpia and mekabel, between giver and recipient. So typically we think, well, the giver, you have the giver and recipient, so the giver stands above the recipient. So again, just using the educational example, the teacher, it has all the wisdom, and the teacher's kind of like, just pouring down, and the student's head is, if you can imagine, like a cartoon version of it. The student's head is kind of like an open funnel, and the teacher is like the spout and the spigot or whatever it is, and pouring, and it's going into the student's brain, and that's how teaching works. Okay, maybe it's not, but maybe somebody could think that. But the truth is that ideas shared, and ideas understood, and ideas received, and even the process of a teacher teaching, something magical happens, and things become enhanced. Things become, amplified and magnified. And that's because of the power of the recipient. And so with this in mind, we're going to look at a little bit about the creation of the universe. And the way we're going to do this is by recognizing the following: that when God creates the world, he also creates some roadblocks in the plan. If you think about the opening story of creation, the opening creation story in the Torah, right? So God creates Adam and he creates, a world that by and large, or by all accounts, seems to be perfection. A world it's the location where Adam and Eve are is called Gan Eden. Gan Eden, we typically would translate as paradise. Right. So they're in a beautiful place. They are Yitzir Kapav, Shalach HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They are the hand crafted. This is like an Etsy situation. They are handcrafted by God. This is not mass produced. This is like the first iteration. It's like getting the first iPhone, made by Steve Jobs himself, if that were even a thing, right? This is like the original version, the original, Adam and Eve. And then God says, of all the trees of the garden, all the trees of the garden you can eat, enjoy, knock yourself out, except for the tree of knowledge of good and evil in the middle of the garden, you can't. And the question, there are many questions on the story. We know how it ends. But one of the questions right at the beginning is, why does God do that? Why does God create a scenario where there's a problem tree in the middle of the garden? Why does God do that? Like, what's with the setup? What's with the what's with the trap? What's with temptation? If you want good, just create good. If you want paradise, just create paradise. What's the problem?
No growth, no
Yeah, you can
chance
say no.
to.
God is Jewish. That's all it is. They never make it easy.
Believe in a Jewish God. All right, I hear that. You're saying, but there's no growth.
There's no opportunity to change, to metamorphosize, to.
Take it for granted.
Or you don't even know if it's all good, then what is good? If
Right.
everything is good.
It's too good.
What is it?
It's too good. I hear you.
I think ever since
You
Einstein,
accept good.
everything in life is
and you don't
relative
have
to
to
something
somehow
else.
deal with
So if you don't have a problem, you would not feel the gratitude of having this wonderful good.
You wouldn't feel paradise if that's all you knew.
Correct.
You wouldn't know light if you didn't have darkness. You wouldn't know life if you didn't have death. I hear that.
If you don't
Good.
have an annoying aunt in the family, you don't appreciate people that are not annoying.
I hear you. I hear you. Got it. Okay, good. So here's another way to look at it. Here's another way to look at it. It's almost like God is saying that, the moment things are hitting the recipient, the moment things are, the moment I'm creating life and creating opportunity, there is something new that is expected to happen. In other words, if I just create life and mankind and the world is just receiving the life and saying, thank you for what you gave us, what's the point of that? What God is really setting up is a dynamic relationship between giver and receiver. God is the giver, obviously. God is creating life. We're the recipient of said life. And what God is saying is that there's going to be something dynamic here in the process. You're going to have the opportunity to take this and run with it, or take this and blow it up. You're going to have the opportunity to take it and change it. I mean, think about children, right? We give them, but then at a certain, we give to them and we raise them and et cetera. But at some point, we also recognize that they are their own person and they have their own, wants and desires and ideas and philosophies and dreams and hopes in life, right? At some point, we realize and we recognize that indeed they, as the recipient of all that we've gave them, all of the resources and all of the tools and all of the ideas and all of the, dreams that we've given them, there is this sense of them becoming their own person and thus having the opportunity to chart their own path. It's almost like God wanted Adam and Eve to have the opportunity to chart their own path. So he says, look, I'm going to create a situation. I'm going to create a universe. I'm going to create a space in which you will have the opportunity to either follow the rules or to break the rules. And if you break the rules, you can then break more rules, or you can come back, right, and apologize, or you can find a new, whatever you want. This is going to be an open universe. It's kind of like, in gaming. It used to be games were very much two-dimensional, which means, let's say Pac-Man, you could only move in a certain direction. You can only do certain things, right? And you could only stay within that world. And then game developers realized, like, wouldn't it be more fun if you gave people the opportunity to almost make their own realities? Like, wouldn't that be cool? Imagine if you created a platform and a gaming platform where people could literally create their own realities. Like, that would be amazing. And so you have like Minecraft and whatever, where you can like create your, I don't know if that's the best example, but yeah, but you can now create your own adventure as you go along, right? I remember back in the day, I'm going to date myself, Sim City. Anybody remember Sim City? No? I don't even know. I don't remember. Sim City, you created like your own like city, right? Yeah, I think there were people and you created a city and Are they gonna, people gonna be happy in the city that you create? So it's kind of like, and then you have now platforms that create tools where you can become your own developer. Like there's what was that company that got Epic, right? Epic got into a big lawsuit with Apple about whatever. Epic has a platform that create tools for people to create tools. It's amazing. But what's the point? The holy grail, if I'm using, mixing metaphors here, the holy grail of development is not to create static recipients and static worlds, but to create worlds that are dynamic, recipients that are dynamic, that can move not only in 2 dimensions, but 3 dimensions, and maybe even beyond that can almost come alive. And the first one that did that was God. God created characters that are not stuck in a box, even in paradise. Even the box of paradise, God created us in a way that's dynamic, in a way that he says, okay, here's what I want, but I'm also going to put all of these things in place where you can create your own adventure. And there's no, I'm not going to write the ending. You're going to write the ending. This is not going to end with, if you eat all what does Pac-Man eat? What are those things? People. Oh, the ghosts? Pac-Man eats ghosts. What are the other things? I guess coins, the little dots. Hey, the ghosts? No, the ghosts eat you. The ghosts eat you, right? But that's very static. It's like either I eat that or he eats me. And then the game's over. Then I pop in another quarter or whatever it is, like back in the old arcades. But that's still very static. Dynamic is, all right, you're going to have choices. You're going to have opportunities. You could epically fail. You could not, you can succeed. If you fail, then what's going to happen next? I don't know. There's no ending. I'm not writing the ending for you. You write your own ending. It's literally choose your own adventure. It's kind of like, remember those books? I don't know if they still have them. Where like there were multiple endings. And it's like, if you want this, turn to page this, want that. Remember that? I don't know. I don't know if do they have that anymore?
No.
I've never heard of that.
They're all gone. They're never gonna make them again.
Unbelievable. Never to be replicated.
They're never gonna.
Never to be replicated. Look, God is the ultimate creator. Talk about a creator that makes itself, we'll just use a neutral pronoun, vulnerable, right? Most people that create want to have a lot of control over their creation. Most people that create want to make sure that you're using it based on the TOC, terms or TNC, whatever, terms and conditions. Like, hold on. You're modifying it. You're out of warranty now, right? Oh, you hacked your Dyson vacuum to also be like a robot. Okay, now you're out, right? Now you're on your own. Now you've gone rogue. Whereas God says, I don't know if maybe God also says that, but along those lines, God says, look, I'm giving you, resources. I'm giving you, and you can use for whatever purpose you want. I'm going to give you the most incredible resources, natural resources, cosmic resources. What I mean by that is like, the sun, power, energy, there's incredible power latent in creation. I'm going to give you the know-how. It might take a long time for you to figure out how to harness it, but then you'll figure out how to harness it. And now the question is, what are you going to use it for? Power cities or blow each other up? What are you going to use it for? I'm not going to, we do have a Torah that says don't blow people up. But aside from that, it's kind of like, I'm not going to stop you, right? God never swooped in other than Egypt to save us one time, right? God doesn't swoop in and stop bad guys from doing bad things. I mean, it would be nice. It would be really nice sometimes, right? I think we can all think of either personal or major historical events that we would have loved for God to have ended before they started, right? How about that guy never been born? That would have been cool. Yeah, that would have been kind of cool, right? Oh, imagine if, the hijackers were never allowed to board on the plane for somehow, or they missed their flight. That would be amazing. It didn't happen. Because God typically, again, unless there's a rare miraculous exception, God doesn't intervene. He created a platform, put us in it. He created all of these resources, both open and hidden, right? It's kind of like, I was listening to an amazing podcast. Okay. Amazing. I may have even mentioned it parenthetically in one of the classes. I know I'm in the middle of a sentence, and I'm okay with that. I hope you don't care more about the end of my sentence than I care about the end of my sentence. So there's this Atari game. I'm now into gaming for a second. I'm on that. Did I mention it? Called Sword Quest in the 80s. Anyway, it was an Atari game, and it was Sword Quest, and there was like Earth, It was like the four elements: earth, air, fire, water. Earth world, fire world, air world, water world. And I don't remember which order it was, but they had real world prizes for the games. If you solve the game and then there's a few steps to it, then you could win a $25,000 prize, but it wasn't just money, it was actual stuff. It was like a gold sword or it was like a mythical thing. So like these mythical, like a mythical goblet, but made out of actual gold with gems that was worth in 1982, whatever, $25,000, which today would be, I don't know, probably 100K or something. What's the point? The point is that these games were made, but there was no information given about the game. You bought the game, and then you were just in the game, and you didn't even know what you needed to do to solve the game. Like there wasn't any narrative of like, okay, so if you do X, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and get to the end, then you win the game. No, this is like, you got to figure out what we want you to figure out. It's unbelievable. It's like, we're not even going to tell you what you need to figure out. You have to figure out what we want you to figure out. And the first game, there were like 5 people in the whole country that figured it out. 5 people. You had to go to this, I don't even know, this, that, or the other. You had to collect, you had to find some numbers, and then they gave like a comic book accompaniment to each game, and then on the page number there were secret codes that matched the numbers, based on the number. There's a page number, and then you had to put those clues together, but it wasn't all the clues, it was some of the clues, and people had to figure out what even the objective was. You weren't told, you were just told there is an objective. You could solve it, go. You don't even know what you're solving.
You need to quit your job to play that game.
You need what?
You need to quit your job to play that game.
The people that won it did not have jobs. The people that won it were, I don't know, they weren't full-time, correct. Or they spent a lot of time in the thing. The reason for it's such an incredible podcast. It's called Sword Quest. If you can look it up, if you have some time to kill. So what was epic about it was that only the first 2 games, they had these competitions. So what happens if you have 5 people that solve it? You had to submit, you had to write a letter and then send it to Ari. And they got like 5 correct answers. So then they had them come to California, to headquarters, and then they had them do a competition amongst the 5 who could solve a new version of the game the fastest. So they had everybody live, they set them up at different stations. By the second game, they had like 100 people to submit the right answer, because I think people were starting to share the concept of how to even think about the game. The first one, you didn't even know how to think. The second one, already the word spread about how to think, so you had more people that solved it. So then they had 100 people. By the third one, they kind of shut it down, because also Atari didn't have money anymore. It was sold. And the new owners are like, this is insane. We are not running this, putting everyone up in a hotel, feeding everybody, and giving away these prizes. And then the question of the podcast is, what happened to the prizes? They were never seen of again. There were pictures of them, like this epic gold sword, emblazoned with these jewels. Like, what happened to these crowns and these epic prizes? And no one knows. It's one of the greatest mysteries of all time. I'm kidding. One of the greatest Atari-related mysteries. We don't know what happened to these prizes ad hayom hazeh until this very day. But I go back, because one of the amazing things before Torah, Torah was given, according to the Jewish count, years, in the year 2448 from creation, 2,500 years in. Do you know what that means? For 2,500 years, humans were playing the game and not even knowing what we're looking for. Cain killed his brother Abel. Terrible. They got into a fight, jealousy, he killed him. First homicide in history. Adam and Eve's own sons. One kills the other. I ask you a simple question. How did he know about homicide? How did he know what a fatal wound was or a fatal blow was? Now, am I letting him off the hook? No. But how did he know? How would he have known? How would he have known that if you hit someone, God forbid, that hard, that it would end their... How would he know?
Do not murder was never even...
They didn't have that yet.
He didn't even commit a sin.
I'm not letting him all the way off the hook. I'm just saying you have to understand that human beings, Adam and Eve were told, well, don't eat from that tree. Yeah, it's not good. And what if I do? What happens if I do? It's like, imagine a big sign. Oh, don't look behind the curtain. You know what the first thing you're gonna do is?
You look
When no one's looking, you're gonna look behind the curtain. Like, okay, what's behind there? It's the first thing. We haven't evolved, right? We have not evolved since Adam and Eve. It's like you can eat all of the trees except for that one tree, but don't worry about it. The only thing you're thinking about is that tree, the tree, the tree, the tree. It's the only thing you're thinking. It's reverse psychology, 101, or I don't know, human psychology.
Hashem knew that was, I mean, he designed it. So
He designed it.
He knew it was
He
gonna
didn't
happen.
coerce it though. He didn't coerce it. He created a scenario where you can have whatever you want. You can have the greatest good. You can get into the greatest trouble. You do whatever you want. There are no rules. It's like when you send your kid away from home, right? Right? You have whatever. Now there's freedom. Living in the house, it's one thing, right? Sivan, Oded's daughter, is making Aliyah to Israel
Mazel tov.
next week.
The one who came with you?
Yeah.
Wow.
May 20. Making Aliyah, moving to Israel. Amazing. There's one level of, when they're under your roof, right? And then there's another level when they're living on their own. Hashem, God, creates us and says, there you go. I'm putting you in the garden. All right, I'll give you some basic ground rules, but you're gonna have to figure it out. But you know what the amazing thing is? If you were to dictate every move of that recipient, of that character's life, they would be miserable. They would be miserable. Ultimately, you would be miserable. That wouldn't be any fun. If you were controlling something, if God were controlling our every move at every moment, wow, that would be so annoying, right? Anybody with me? Don't worry, we're in a zap-free environment. You can join me with this, right? Wouldn't that be annoying, right? Micromanaged down to the every move.
As long as we're not programmed to love her.
Oh, right, I hear you, right. You're saying that if we could be created like that and programmed to love that, and then it would be amazing. Like, oh my gosh, I love being micromanaged, and I was forced to say that also, that I love it, right? Because there's nothing that I'm choosing. I hear you. But from the outside, from our perspective, oh my gosh, that would be insane. That would be crazy. Who has fun like that? Yeah.
Isn't there like something in Kabbalah that the world was created, maybe not a thing?
Oh.
Nobody can sustain it.
But we have a different way of explaining it. We have a different way. Kabbalah has a different way of explaining it. Yes. In the beginning, God wished to create the world, but midat hadin, with strict justice. But it means different than what we think it means. It doesn't mean micromanaging. What it means is, on the contrary, an openness to fail, and therefore the ability to pick oneself up after failing and to feel like disappointed in self, to self-judge our actions, and then be inspired to do better the next time. We learn the most by our mistakes. So God puts the forbidden fruit in paradise. Who does that? Right? It's like that poisonous thing in the White Lotus. Who would do that? Right, whatever. Right? Who would, like, why would you do that? Why would you put a forbidden fruit? Don't you love us? Imagine Adam could have said to God, you don't love me? Why are you setting me up for failure? Or forget setting up. Why are you even creating the possibility of failure? It's like, I'm going to give you your first car. And this is how it works. There's one button. If you happen to press it, it's going to be right in the middle of all the other buttons. But if you press that one, the whole thing goes kablooey. Just don't press it. You're like, why would you put that button there? First of all, that's crazy. Second of all, I don't know. I think second of all, also that's crazy. I don't think I have anything else to say other than, why would you do that? Like, don't you love me? Why you give me a car with a destruction, with a exploding button? Like, just don't create that button. And so the answer on the deepest of levels is that let's build up to it. So first of all, God wants us to live, to not just be passive recipients and automatons or whatever the word is, and Autobots and just robots. But God wants us to be in his image, lateral moving and lateral thinking creatures that we can think on our own and think, what we want and how we want to do it, and kind of almost like that freedom of God. Obviously not to the same extent, because we can't fathom what God's reality is like. But yet, on some level, it's this freedom. God doesn't create us. Imagine if you are a character in a book. Imagine if you are a character author. You are Harry Potter, right? J.K. What's her name? J.K.
Rowling.
or Rowling, whatever. So she writes you into being. So now you're Harry Potter. You are the creation. Now you assume that you are that character. You don't have any movement. She's dictating what you're going to do, what you're going to say, and how you're going to do it, right? The beginning, middle, and end of that plot has been written for you. We don't believe that that's how God creates us. God does not create us and write us in like a character in a book in which we're forced to act and behave and dialogue in a certain way. God gives us absolute freedom. Absolute. No. We cannot fly with our own hands to outer space. No. But you know what? We can build it. Okay? Humans can't fly, but we can. We can't go to outer space. We can. In the Kiddush Levana, in the prayer that we recite over the moon, we don't pray to the moon. That's not Judaism. That would be a different thing. But we, once a month, when the new moon appears, not that it's new, but when it reappears after we don't see it, we say a blessing. We stand outside with in the moonlight, and we say a blessing to God Almighty for creating the moon and the light of the moon, and giving us the gift of the Jewish month, which goes by the moon. And one of the things that we say is, well, there's a tradition. You actually stand, actually standing, this just standing, but you kind of lift the back of your feet. You go like this 3 times, and you say, Kashem shani roked kenegdech ve'eni yachol goabach, just like I jump and I can't touch you, meaning the moon. Kach lo yuchlu kol avai l'ngoa l'ra. So too may my enemies never be able to touch me and harm me. So just like I cannot jump and reach the moon, so too pray to God, my enemies should not be able to touch me and to reach me. Okay. Some people in the 1960s had a problem with the moon, with going to the moon, because here we have a prayer that says I can't reach the moon. So what happens when we reach the moon? So the Rebbe spoke about this, and he said, "Did you even read the prayers?" It said, just like I can't jump and reach the moon, you can't jump. You still can't jump and reach the moon. You can go into a spacecraft and reach the moon, but that's not what you say in the prayer. So don't worry, the prayer is still accurate. You don't have to change the language of the prayer or worry about the prayer becoming obsolete. It still works. But what's the point? The point is that human beings figure out how to fly. Somebody said, oh, birds look kind of cool. Let's do that. And there's a prophecy that says, about Mashiach. We've spoken about Mashiach before. In the Messianic era, when Mashiach comes, we're gonna all go to the Holy Land, on the wings of the birds. And for centuries, for millennia, it was always thought like, oh wow, it's gonna be a really big bird to carry a bunch of people. Does each one get their own bird? Can I travel with someone that I love? I mean, how and who are these birds? Where do these birds come from? I mean, is it sacrilegious to say that when the prophet might say something like being carried, on the wings of birds, that just means an airplane? I mean, is that like, oh no, it has to be literally the wing of birds? Or, I mean, isn't that kind of what it is? Right?
Yeah.
Mechanical bird in the
Could have been
sky.
the metaphor. It's unconventional.
But that's what I'm saying. Maimonides says that all the messianic prophecies, we won't understand them until they happen, because they're all allegorical and metaphorical, but we know in general what it means. But the bottom line is that God creates the world in such a way that he gives us the greatest opportunities, and the greatest opportunities include also the opportunities for failure. But without failure, there's no growth. And that's really the point of today's class. The reason why it's so amazing to give and to share with someone else is because you don't know the direction they're going to take. If you're a teacher and you share ideas, you don't know where the kids are going to go with it. That's amazing, because you know where you're going to go with them, because I don't know, you're locked into yourself. So you know what you've done with what you know. You know that, but you don't know when you're speaking to 50 people in a room. You don't know, or 20 people, or 10 people, or 5, or even 1 person. You don't know what they're going to do with that. If I share this idea, if I share this core truth with you, what is that going to inspire you to do? How's that going to change your life and the lives of others? That's magic. That's the power of education. That's the power of communication. That's the power of sharing. That's the power of mashpia and mekabel, of giver and recipient. Because recipients aren't passive; they're dynamic. God doesn't create us to be passive recipients of His life, of His blessings. God creates us to be dynamic. And again, a critical piece of this is the power and the ability. Are they doing stunts?
No comments.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. Tell you a story when we're off camera about Shia. Anyway, this is the greatest gift that God gives us. The gift of personal autonomy, the gift of the ability to make choices, and honestly, the ability to fail. Had God not put that tree of knowledge of good and evil, that had God not put that destruct button, not really destruct, but that mess up things button, we would have never messed up. And because of that, we would have never grown, because growth happens when we mess up. Growth happens when we take, looks like a BMX show behind me. When growth happens when we make bad choices, and then we have to learn the right path. I've shared this idea many times. I heard it originally from Rabbi Tzvi Freeman, who is incredible, and gives a Tanya class every Thursday night. I heard it from him. He said, imagine you're a director of a play, right? You have this live theater happening, and you're the director. And your two characters on stage, and one of them, you see on their face, they're forgetting their lines. Like their mind is completely blank. And you're like, oh, this is such a disaster. They're on stage, they forgot the lines. You have 100, 500, 1,000 people in the audience. What's going to happen now? And then the character, the actor, reaches deep inside, and despite having forgotten the lines, comes up with new lines. He comes up with a new angle on the scene. And as a director, you say, wow, that's better than I wrote it. That's what's going on here. That's the greatest nachas. When they don't exactly necessarily follow the path that we might have set out for them, but they come up with a better path, one of their own choosing, one of their own trial and error. Because we know that's how our life turned out, right? Our lives are the product of trial and error. We didn't follow, none of us are robots that were forced, automatically to stay within a lane and follow exactly the script that was written for us. We all tried things and failed and got up and tried more things and discovered what it is that makes us alive, what it is that makes us, unique and happy. And my friends, this is the meaning of life. The meaning of life is not to just be stuck in a static environment, but to be in a dynamic environment and to be co-creators in this amazing gift of life. So this week, here's the meditation. Meditation for this week is, and I don't mean you have to close your eyes and cross your legs and float. What I mean is something to think about as take care of you through the week. Think about, what is it in my life that has, what are the areas of my life that I have not been, immediately successful at? And how have those moments served as opportunities for growth? And how, when I share with others, whether it's in parenting or mentoring or teaching or communicating or leading in a leadership role, whatever it is, team, companies, whatever, how can I give the people around me or under my, whatever it is, how can I give them that space to make their own mistakes and to grow in a way that is truly creative and dynamic? And with this, we will grow, those around us will grow. Please God, we will have and enjoy a better world tomorrow than we enjoy today.
Oh, man.
Chaim, cold tea. Cheers.
You are the best.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Great to see you.
Great to see you.
When do you leave to Israel? Whoa.
Yeah.
How long?
Well, we're connecting through Paris, but it's like 12 years total.
Nice.
For
Amazing.
sure, something.
Amazing. Enjoy.
Thank you.
This is very special.
Thank you.
This is very
Have a
special.
safe trip.
Thank you.
Oh, Dad, maybe we can get Sivan for a final farewell next week.
I'll try.
See if you can tell her like one hurrah for Kabbalah Café before she moves. She's done.
Wow.
Done with Choco Tech?
She's done. She graduated. She just graduated from tech. Yeah. She graduated and now she's gonna live her best life in Israel. I was shocked.
I get friend too, parents are Israeli and.
Finish UGA or graduated now, he's moving with his family or on his own?
His grandparents are there.
It's wild. His daughter just graduated tech, and she is heading out next week to move. Yeah, I'm like, what's that?
Because the Israeli parent, that was, first parent.
Yeah.
They're always crazy.
Israeli parent.
It's gotta be, there's, yeah,
I mean,
because like
it makes sense.
you're from, but you're here, yeah.
It's a wild.
Leno, where are you next year?
I'm in New York State.
Nice. Oh, okay, nice. How was?
Great.
Yeah?
I've moved downtown, so.
Oh, you live there?
Yeah.
I just moved back.
Nice. But I'm saying you have a place over there, like an apartment?
Yeah.
Did you, hey, Dr. Max, good to see you. Oh, hold on, let's say hi to everybody. 1 second. Hold on, I want to make sure I don't knock over everything.
Hello, Sandrine. So good to see you with the home spaka.
It's very special.
Simon.
Yeah.
I
No.
see. Hello.
Oh, have you been to Caesar? You never seen
It's our island. Simon.
Oh, that is your island. Oh, I didn't, I'm like, why is it your island? I got it. I'm usually above these. That's like my bread basket. Oh, nice. All right, good. All right, Shavua Tov. We'll see you, Dr. Max.
Shavuot tov.
Lisa, good to see you. Take care.